Listen to me. You don't let me out of here, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna take your life if you don't let me out of here. Okay? If you don't let me out of here, I'm gonna kill you.
I beg your honor, the harshest sentence imposed to the coward, the murderer,
You pathetic coward was your husband.
stability and sanity of an entire family.
That's why I killed him.
Take him out, Judge? If you're
Coward, your house here. Can I like a baby?
This is Joshua Jones, who's appearing for a bond hearing in South Carolina.
Do you want to be screened for an attorney?
Care.
Mr. Jones.
According to reports, on January 28, 2012, Officer Sandy Rogers responded to a call about a suspicious vehicle in Eustis Park. Jones, who was in the vehicle, allegedly shot and killed her. Jones had reportedly fled to the park after murdering his pregnant girlfriend Casey Weiss at their apartment in Augusta. He was arrested and charged with murder and possession of a firearm while committing a felony. As the judge read the proceedings at his bond hearing, Jones appeared disturbed and disorientated.
You do not understand the law that you're charged under. I'll be glad to explain the law to you. You have a charge of possession of a weapon during a violent crime and also a charge of murder.
At first, he seemed to respond to the judge's questions.
Do you understand the charge of possession of a weapon during a violent crime?
Yeah.
On that charge, if you're found guilty, it can carry a sentence of up to 5 years and or a fine in the discretion of the court. Do you understand the law pertaining to murder?
Yeah.
But when the judge asked if he could afford a lawyer, Jones snapped.
Do you have the income to hire an attorney on your own?
Does it look like it?
I don't know, sir. I don't have any idea.
First, he refused a lawyer, then proceeded to growl and make hissing noises at the judge.
Do you want me to screen you for an attorney?
No,
Can I hire your own?
I don't need one.
Do you want to be screened for an attorney?
I don't care.
Mr.
Jones.
Jones kept shaking his head and snapping his teeth like crazy. Ultimately, a public defender was appointed to represent him.
I am going to pre-qualify you for a court-appointed attorney. Someone from the public defender's office will come over and speak with you about your case.
Jones eventually pleaded guilty but mentally ill. A psychiatrist testified and diagnosed him as schizophrenic. Due to his significant mental health history, Jones avoided the death penalty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
The possibility is that you will not be able to bond out.
Joshua Jones's wild expressions certainly aren't for the faint-hearted. But how does it compare to hailing Hitler in court?
One day, my spirit will rise from my grave, and you all know that I was right. How Hitler?
Like in the case of Frazier Glenn Cross, a white supremacist accused of murdering 3 people in Kansas.
But I do apologize for those who died. Thought they were Jews. I wouldn't have shot them otherwise.
As per reports on April 13, 2014, Cross, a former member of the Ku Klux Klan, shot and killed 3 people at a Jewish site in Overland Park.
Do you recall saying that the Jews will remember my name?
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
His victims were 69-year-old William Corcoran, his 14-year-old grandson Reet Underwood, and 53-year-old Terry Lamano. Police showed up quickly and took Cross into custody. One of the officers caught the whole thing on his body cam.
One of them captured this dash cam video. Take a look. It shows Frazier Glenn Cross being arrested by Overland Park police. You can see he's surrounded by several officers.
They said Cross asked for a celebratory whiskey after the shootings. He was even heard screaming Nazi slogans out of the back of the police car. In court, the prosecutor said that Cross was proud of his actions and did not have any regrets.
To decide the fate of a man whom the evidence shows to be a proud and remorseless killer who regrets only that he did not kill more people.
He also pointed out that Cross was a known racist, as some of his interviews back in 2006 suggested.
The only thing I ain't figured out is whether to hate all you Jews or just the Zionists. That's the only thing I ain't. And I hate you. You're a Jew and I hate you.
And when the prosecutor questioned him about his motives, Cross lost his cool.
So really, this is about you being infamous is why you did it.
No. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me?
Cross, who was representing himself, shockingly said that God knew what he did was right and moral.
If there is a God up there, God, you know that what I did and what's in my heart is righteous, is honorable, is moral. And therefore, God, you will reward me.
He also called his son to the stand, where he said that Cross was a good father, but their beliefs did not match in any way.
I think, for the most part, I had a good father, belief system, which nobody in our family really agreed with him so much on that.
But it was when he was denied by the judge to enter certain website articles as evidence, Cross exploded.
Just get the hell out of here, go back to my cell, and wait for phase 2 if you're not going to give me a fair trial. You won't even answer a simple question. What the hell's the matter with you?
The judge gave him a warning, but Cross was having none of it.
This is your warning, sir. If you're going to proceed in this manner, you will be removed from the court.
Cross also had some choice words for the jury before they gave their verdict.
I fear you'll take the easy way out, the safe way out. But if you do, your consciences will torment you the rest of your life.
The prosecutor also addressed the jury.
He wants to be king. He wants to bring down edicts. He wants to be the one who decides who lives and who dies.
Eventually, they found Cross guilty, but he remained defiant.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
At his sentencing, Cross admitted he shot the victims because he thought they were Jews. They were not.
But I do apologize for those who died. I thought they were Jews. I wouldn't have shot them otherwise.
He was ultimately sentenced to death by lethal injection.
I find from the review of the entirety of the evidence presented in this trial that the jury's verdict should be and is affirmed. And for your conviction for capital murder, you will be transported to the Kansas Department of Corrections to carry out the sentence of death by lethal injection as provided by Kansas law.
One day, my spirit will rise from my grave, and you all know that I was right. How Hitler.
Cross later died in 2021 while on death row at the age of 80. While Frazier Cross's anti-Semitic rants were truly shocking, how do they compare to the ghastly appearance of our next convict? This is Esteban Carpio, a suspect in the murder of a cop in Providence, Rhode Island.
And convicted of killing a Providence police detective with his own service weapon, is going to federal court to try and get a new trial.
According to reports, on April 7, 2005, Carpio was brought into questioning for stabbing 85-year-old Madeline Gata in a robbery gone wrong. During his interrogation at the Providence police headquarters, a detective left the room to get some water, leaving Carpio alone with Detective Sergeant James Allen. Seizing the opportunity, Carpio overpowered Detective Allen, grabbed his service gun, and shot him twice before jumping from a 3-story window and fleeing.
Carpio had asked for water, and the 2 detectives that were in there with him, one left to get the water. Tragically, heard Detective Allen say, "I think he's going to kill me." By the time they broke it down, the officer was dying, and Carpio had jumped out the window.
The whole police force jumped into action, and a large manhunt ensued. Carpio's freedom was short-lived. He was arrested within the next hour.
Esteban Carpio is found and taken into custody nearly an hour after his bold escape.
Sadly, Detective Allen later died at the hospital.
Jimmy Allen passed in the noblest way possible. He gave his life trying to make our lives safer.
And we've lost a remarkable man today.
The next day, when Carpio appeared at his arraignment, the whole courtroom was left stunned. His whole face was swollen, and he was made to wear a spit mask. Carpio's family members were shocked to see his condition.
Step off.
They accused the authorities of police brutality.
It's police brutality. He was mentally ill, and he needed help, and we couldn't get him, and he didn't deserve this.
An FBI investigation concluded that police did not use excessive force and Carpio's injuries were from his attempted escape and subsequent arrest.
There's no civil rights violation. Injuries are incident to arrest, meaning if he's fighting the police officers, the officers have the right to use whatever force necessary to subdue the subject.
As the trial went on, Carpio's defense argued on the grounds of insanity, but prosecution witnesses said that the murder was cold and deliberate.
The murder of my husband was a cold and deliberate action. The jury found that Esteban Carpio was not insane at the time of the crime.
Ultimately, the jury rejected his plea and found Carpio guilty. At his sentencing, Carpio took the stand where he said he regretted his actions.
Every day, I face the facts of what I did and what happened.
Eventually, Carpio was sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder, plus an additional 20 years for the assault on Madeline Gata. While Esteban Carpio's horrific appearance left the whole courtroom shocked, how does it compare to having a complete meltdown in court?
Don't do that! I got my leg broke!
Like in the case of Blanca Regalado, who's facing attempted murder charges in Florida. As per reports, 53-year-old Regalado stabbed her husband 6 times at their apartment at 1800 North Bayshore Drive in Miami. Police said Regalado confessed that she stabbed her husband because she was tired of him.
She did make spontaneous statements to our officers that she's tired of him, so she stabbed him, and he's a drunk.
And when she learned her husband would make a full recovery, her response was, "No, I want him dead." At her bond hearing, the judge read out the charges.
Good morning. You're being charged with attempted felony murder.
Due to the severity of the crime, Regalado was denied bond. This is when she lost it.
No bond.
Me tengo que ir a la cárcel así, pero mi marido me pegó. Si eres el que me rompió la pierna, por favor, my husband broke my leg. Please, no, don't do that, no. No, please, don't do that. Don't do that. No, please, don't.
Regalado claimed she was in a wheelchair because her husband broke her leg.
My husband broke my leg.
She repeatedly pleaded with the judge, but got little reaction. Eventually, Regalado was escorted out of the courtroom. The next day, she was back in court again. This time, Regalado appeared calm as the judge addressed her. Her hands were shaking, but she seemed sober and apologetic.
I want you to listen. Don't say anything, just listen. Okay?
Regalado's attorney argued that this was a bondable offense.
Your Honor, to my knowledge, that is a bondable offense, and to my knowledge, there's a standard bond of $10,000 for that charge.
As to the request for bond, it is denied. The defendant remains with no bond.
The judge was having none of it. Eventually, Regalado was denied bond again and was sent back to prison. Although Blanca Regalado's meltdown was quite stunning, how does it compare to headlocking an officer in court?
Let me go.
Like in the case of Latasha Williams, who's facing child endangerment and kidnapping charges for threatening 2 kids in a Las Vegas apartment complex. Today, she's at the Clark County District Court for a mental competency hearing. Throughout the hearing, a visibly agitated Williams kept interrupting Judge Jackie Glass.
Dr. Sussman said that I was competent to stand trial. We've got the suspect eval. No, hold on a second. I'm not done talking.
Eventually, Judge Glass sent her back to prison.
Is she remanded into custody? And I got kids and let me go. I got kids and responsibilities. Y'all, let me go. Let's go. No, let me go. Let me go. Let me go.
Quit resisting. Come on.
As court officers tried to escort her out of the courtroom, Williams resisted. At one point, she catapulted herself into the air and wrapped her legs around an officer's neck.
Let me go. Let me go. Let me go.
Judge Glass pressed the emergency button and called for backup.
I pressed the button. I never pressed the button.
Eventually, it took 4 officers to restrain Williams. She was not done. Overpowered and on the ground, Williams continued with her rant.
Get my purse, Stephen.
Judge Glass later said this was the biggest meltdown she had ever seen in a courtroom.
This is probably one of the biggest meltdowns I've seen. It takes 3 marshals to help secure her to the floor and try and get her to calm down.
While Latasha Williams got the comforts of home to rant, How does it compare to convicting and sentencing the wrong suspect? Like in the case of Percy Phillips, who's facing charges for retaliating against a witness.
He threatened the police officer who testified against him.
Bang you, goddamn black. You up, man.
As per reports, Phillips acted out against a witness inside a courtroom in a previous trial. Now a hearing is underway to determine whether the 45-year-old was competent to stand trial. His lawyer argued that it was impossible for him to mount a defense since Phillips wouldn't talk.
It would be our position that if we end up in trial, there is no way I can competently even frame a defense. What do you want me to say or do at your trial? And he won't tell me. He literally, for years, has not said a word.
He even predicted what was to follow later on in the courtroom.
Mr. Phillips has shared that he doesn't know exactly what he'll do in certain situations in the courtroom. He thinks he just may explode.
Then, while the prosecutor was making his argument, something unexpected happened.
Your Honor, it's interesting to remember when the defendant was unhappy with the verdict and unhappy with the sentence. He threatened the police officer who testified against him.
Bang you, goddamn black. You up, man.
Phillips, who until that moment had showed no emotion, suddenly snapped.
Day was 16 to 239. I had to stun Percy Phillips. You want to come on up?
Backup arrived, and after being tased by an officer, Phillips dropped like a stone. Eventually, Phillips was deemed incompetent and the case was dismissed. Percy Phillips's case was certainly controversial, but how does it compare to the bizarre murder case of our next convict? This is Joseph Merlino, who's facing murder charges in Virginia. Reports suggest that on Valentine's Day 2017, Merlino attacked his ex-girlfriend, Ellie Tran, outside her home in Virginia Beach. CCTV footage shows Ellie arriving at her home around 8 p.m. After exiting her car, Ellie was ambushed by Merlino, who stabbed her in the leg with a syringe. Ellie briefly pursued her attacker, but panicked and returned home. She did not survive the attack. Ellie later died at the hospital. Merlino was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors claim the attack stemmed from a custody dispute over the couple's 2-year-old daughter. Merlino's lawyer said he was nowhere near the murder scene when it happened.
The defendant was 2.5 to 3 hours away when this crime took place. We intend to provide evidence to prove that at the appropriate time.
But his phone records placed Merlino at the crime scene at the time of the murder. Not only that, Merlino also made several Google searches related to cyanide days before the attack. Merlino maintained his innocence throughout the trial.
It was a huge mistake for justice, and the wrong person sitting right now in jail.
At his sentencing, Merlino's appearance shocked everyone. He was brought in a wheelchair, foaming at the mouth and showing signs of a seizure. A court doctor who examined Merlino said he had no prior medical condition that caused this episode and believed it was induced by stress.
Merlino couldn't talk and had a constant twitch and was foaming at the mouth. A jail doctor testified he first noticed Merlino was not acting himself this morning. He says Merlino has no medical condition that caused this episode, and he believes it was brought on by stress.
The sentencing was postponed. 1 week later, a seemingly healthy Merlino once again appeared before the court. This time, he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Ellie Tran. While Joseph Merlino will spend the rest of his life in prison for poisoning his ex-girlfriend, what happens when you set a place of worship on fire? Like in the case of Anthony Boisvert, who's facing multiple felony charges in New Hampshire.
Mr. Boisvert. Mr. Boisvert, have a seat.
Boisvert went on a crime spree. First, the 29-year-old set fire to the First Baptist Church, a historic structure built in 1870. Prosecutors said the fire caused extensive damage to the church.
Destroyed the church. The loss was estimated in excess of $2 million.
Not long after, Boisvert started another fire at a house just a few blocks away.
As soon as we left, not even probably a half an hour later, he was found here trying to break in.
A resident described the shocking scene.
Alarm goes off at 12:15. I opened my door, and the hallway was full of smoke.
According to police, a couch was set on fire in the basement. Luckily, it was put out by sprinklers before first responders arrived. If that wasn't enough, a few days later, Boisvert stabbed 2 residents of Boulder's condominiums in retaliation. Prosecutors said Boisvert believed the 2 acted as police informants for the church fire.
In addition to that, following starting these fires, at some point he became aware that 2 individuals may have given information to the Lebanon Police Department.
A neighbor recalled the horrific scene.
There is blood everywhere. It looks like a scene you would see on TV.
She even witnessed Boisvert running away after the stabbing.
Saw Anthony running away, and then we looked in Wade's apartment because he left the door wide open and saw Wade drenched in blood.
Shortly after, Boisvert was arrested outside his sister's Tannery Lane apartment. Prosecutors described Boisvert's appearance at the time of his arrest.
The defendant was located shortly thereafter on Tannery Road in Lebanon and taken into custody. At the time that he was taken into custody, his clothing was covered in blood.
They also argued that Boisvert shouldn't be released, as he's still a danger to the community.
The facts of this case are both disturbing as well as concerning in that if he is released, the state has no confidence that the community will be safe.
This is when Boisvert became unhinged.
Mr. Boisvert.
You should give me about a $500 bail so I can go and stab my cousin to death. Maybe kill my aunt and my uncle Kevin. Maybe I can cut him up and eat him on a frying pan.
Eventually, Boisvert pleaded guilty to 9 felony charges. At his sentencing, he apologized for his actions and promised to seek help.
I just want to say I apologize for the First Baptist Church. Other than that, I apologize for my behaviors, and I hope I get help.
Ultimately, Boisvert was sentenced to serve a minimum of 25 years in prison, with the possibility of extending up to 50 years. While Anthony Boisvert will spend a significant part of his life in jail for his crime spree, what happens when you're a menace in the courtroom?
Jordan Beard is Jolene Cummings' cousin. Jordan Beard is Jolene's cousin.
Like in the case of Kimberly Kessler.
We're on mute anyway, so I can say whatever the f*** I want.
We're not on mute.
Oh, okay.
As per reports, on May 12, 2018, Kessler stabbed and killed her co-worker, Jolene Cummings, with a pair of scissors inside the Tangles hair salon on Fernandina Beach. Not long after that, CCTV footage showed Kessler driving Jolene's car to a parking lot where she abandoned it. She also disposed of Jolene's body in a dumpster, which was never recovered. Her trial was marred with regular outbursts and insults. At one point, she accused her own lawyer of being related to the victim.
Jordan Beard is Jolene's cousin.
Jordan Beard is Jolene Cummings' cousin.
Jordan Beard is Jolene's cousin.
Kessler also laid accusations towards the judge, saying he was involved in covering up the truth.
You have silenced me for years. So let everyone know Jordan Beard, public defender, is Jolene Cummings' cousin. You just swept it under the rug.
Correctional officers revealed Kessler's unpleasant behavior in custody.
On occasion, I've seen her smearing pieces on the windows. Take her clothes off and went in the window and pressed her breast against the window.
Threatened to break every bone in my body.
Jolene's mother, Ann Johnson, believed Kessler was trying to manipulate the court by trying to dismiss the case on the grounds of incompetence. Also in an interview, Kessler's ex-husband described her as a crazy woman who loved to play mind games.
I heard something about she had stabbed you with some scissors. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, she was crazy. I can tell you that. She was, I know it's a crazy woman, but she was out there. She had mind games.
At her sentencing, Kessler declined to be present in the courtroom.
All right, but to do that, you again must not disrupt these proceedings.
Refuse.
Pardon?
No, thank you.
All right. Do you want to go back downstairs?
Yes.
All right, fair enough then. You can take her back.
Kessler was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Jolene Cummings. The Nassau County Sheriff later said he believed it was not Kessler's first murder.
I don't for one second believe that Kimberly Kessler, or whatever name she's going by today, I don't believe this is her first murder. I don't at all. She's evil. She's evil in the flesh. And as soon as she's sentenced, I want her behind out of our jail because we are fed up with her crap.
While Kimberly Kessler's outbursts were certainly shocking, it's nothing compared to the sickening behavior of Brice Rhodes, who was charged with 3 murders in Louisville, Kentucky.
Now, listen, stop talking. Have been... Are you done?
No, I'm done.
As per reports, Rhodes and his 2 accomplices, Yohn Carter and Ja'Cory Taylor, tortured and stabbed brothers Larry Ordway and Maurice Gordon. The bodies of the 2 19-year-olds were found in an abandoned lot by a woman who called 911.
It looks like they're deceased and they've been burned.
Rhodes was arrested and interrogated, where he initially denied any wrongdoing.
They run away too, like.
Well, if we knew that, man, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I wish I could help, know what it was, you know, I don't.
But one of his accomplices, Yohn Carter, later confessed to the police.
He made Maurice on his knees and like beg for forgiveness. And like he put a toboggan over his head and he put a rag in his mouth. And then he stabbed him.
He then described how Rhodes disposed of the bodies in crates.
What happens next? He puts them in crates. Put them in crates. Like, you know, things that you put clothes in. He would have stabbed him.
He made you all stab him? So you and Corey stabbed him too? Alright. How many times do you think you stabbed him?
I stabbed him one time. He left me and Corey at the house to clean it up. And they seen somebody just walking on the street. And they said Rambo's like at the street and shot him. Maurice, he was a getaway driver, so he was driving.
In court, Rhodes claimed the prosecutors were framing him.
The prosecution is known for falsifying and altering documents about evidence. On May 24, 2016, Yohn Carter, so he told detectives that allegedly a double homicide took place at my home. So detectives called for a search warrant and searched my home at 21:18 hours. They searched for hours. They applied Blue Star chemical solution all throughout the house, found no such evidence of any type of crime. Clear the scene and they leave for 1 hour and 20 minutes. They leave for 1 hour and 20 minutes. They come back and they research the home. Now all of a sudden they claim to find blood on the carpet.
Now, if that wasn't enough, Rhodes' lawyer suddenly quit because of an alleged spitting incident between the 2.
Nice cheap shot. You a coward. Nice cheap shot. You a coward.
Due to that and a history of misdemeanors in prison, Rhodes was seen strapped to a chair wearing a spit mask in his next court appearance.
Mr. Rhodes, you can just bring him up right here.
Why y'all have me come out like this for?
I think you know why.
But that did not stop his misconduct. After a profanity-laced rant, Rhodes tried to intimidate the judge by threatening to find out where he lived.
You think where you live at? What you think at? None of that. I ain't do.
So you're saying you're going to find out where I'm out?
None of that. You got family, I'll be out.
That was a threat against the court. I think that I'm asking the county attorney's office to take that into account.
But that's not all. In his next court appearance, Rhodes accused the judge of having a sexual relationship with the prosecutor.
I don't know if y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on or what y'all got going on, but I'm definitely going to speak my mind.
Detective Tatelli, I have no sexual relationship.
Now I'm talking about you and a prosecutor over there, sir.
He even called the judge a racist, much to the shock of his own attorney.
Are you some type of racist? Or y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on? Which one is it? You a secret Ku Klux Klan member?
No, sir.
Is that what you really are?
No.
Okay.
I'm not.
Rhodes' courtroom antics continued. In another hearing, he smiled and made gestures at the mother of the victims, Marie Wren.
And another part of it is, if we have a concern, what's the alternative? Because then if we might get into a situation on the law where I'm supposed to weigh the pros and the cons. Ma'am.
Look at me.
Ma'am.
The grieving mother lost it and had to be dragged away from court by security.
Lock me up! Lock me up! Let me get to you. Let me see.
The victim's grandmother reacted to Rhodes' disrespectful behavior.
Going on 4 years for him to stay. I'm their grandmother, and this is going on for 4 years.
Do you think he should be executed?
Yes.
Eventually, Rhodes was found guilty of all charges.
We, the jury, do find beyond a reasonable doubt that an aggravating circumstance exists in this case and fix the defendant's punishment for the murder of Maurice Gordon at life without the possibility of parole.
He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While Brice Rhodes' clash with the judges will forever be legendary, how does it compare to being forcefully carried into the courtroom? Like in the case of Kwauhuru Govan, a suspect in 2 murder cases in Brooklyn, New York.
Just because I don't want to be printed, that gives them the right to assault me, to punch me in my face. Wow.
Back in 2004, the body of 17-year-old Sharabia Thomas was found in laundry bags in a Bushwick alley. The case went cold for years until Govan was arrested in 2014 for armed robbery in Florida. This led to his DNA being registered in the system, which police later matched with DNA evidence from the Sharabia murder case. Govan was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. In court, prosecutors recalled the heartbreaking fate of the 17-year-old victim.
The victim had ligature marks on her wrists and her ankles, indicating that she had been tied up and restrained. Contusions about her body, indicating that she has been severely beaten. And the OCME the medical examiner determined the cause of death to be strangulation.
The defense argued that DNA evidence is not always accurate.
DNA is not infallible because there are people who process it, there are people who take it.
At his sentencing, Sharabia's sister begged the judge to give Govan the longest possible sentence.
My sister was a fighter. You definitely picked the wrong person. Words cannot express the pain and anguish my family and I have endured since my sister's death. The fact that someone like you can take the life of a human being with no regard is unimaginable.
Then Govan took the stand, where he apologized to the victim's family while still maintaining his innocence.
To say first of all that I am sorry for the family lost in this case, but I am not the perpetrator of this crime.
Ultimately, Govan was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for the murder of Sharabia Thomas. However, that's not all. While on trial for Sharabia's murder, Govan's DNA matched with another cold case from 2005. This time, it was for the murder of 19-year-old Rashawn Brazel, whose dismembered body parts were found across New York City's subway tracks. Govan was tried separately for Brazel's murder, where he had to be physically dragged into the courtroom after refusing to provide his fingerprints.
Shackled and handcuffed, 38-year-old Kwauhuru Govan was dragged into court, screaming and struggling.
As officers tried to subdue him, Govan's outbursts continued.
I'm handcuffed. Look what they're doing to me, Judge.
No other defendant is doing what you're doing.
They haven't been assaulted. I have.
Because you are not allowing the police to print you.
So because I'm not, you hear it from the judge's mouth himself. Because I'm not being allowed to be printed, that gives them the right to assault me. Where does it say that in the Constitution? Where does it say that? Look at my clothes. Look at my clothes. Can I stand up, please? Can I stand up? Look at, I have a right to stand. I have a right to stand in court. I have a right to stand in court. I have a right to stand in court.
No, you
don't. They don't want to stand when you see
No.
Get off me. Look, you see? Look, what am I doing?
You're grown, man.
What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?
You're trying to stand up, and they're telling you to stay seated.
Well, I want to stand up so American people can see my clothes, can see how they've been treating me, see how they've been treating me. I am handcuffed and shackled behind my back.
Even when the judge tried to calm him down, Govan continued his rant.
With these things cutting off my circulation. They are cutting off my circulation.
You go, Ben.
They are cutting off my
I'm
circulation.
remanding you.
Why are they pushing
I will
me down?
see you tomorrow.
I cannot breathe. My
By
ribcage
then you
is
should
being
be
bruised by this desk
remanded.
that doesn't move. My chair is being, I can't breathe. Look, I can't breathe. These people in the court, now they want me to stand up, right?
I'll see you
Now
tomorrow,
they want me
Mr.
to stand up, but they won't let me stand up for you to see my clothes, right? You see me, DNA lady. I spoke to you. Please come and see me. Please come and see me. Channel 7, please come and see me.
But the judge was having none of it. He ordered Govan to reappear in court every day until he agreed to give his fingerprints. As they were leading him out of the courtroom, Govan kept pleading his innocence.
Kwauhuru Govan is innocent. They are framing me for my own cousin murder, saying I can't even dissect the frogs. I can't dissect the frogs. Look what they're doing to me.
See you tomorrow.
However, this time, Govan got lucky. The case was eventually dismissed due to a lack of evidence. While Kwauhuru Govan's spectacular outburst made headlines all over, how does it compare to throwing a tantrum in court?
I'm working at McDonald's. Now I gotta come here and my life up. You!
Like in the case of Milton Watts, who's in court for failing to appear on a domestic violence charge.
Milton Watts.
Things went off to a rough start when Judge Chris Green asked Milton about missing his court appearance.
You were supposed to be here last month. You did not appear. Why weren't you here?
My mom didn't show up. Somebody died in the family. There was no reason for me to be here.
Well, it's not an engraved invitation, son. It's a court order.
Judge Green initially showed some leniency. He asked Milton to hire a new lawyer since the previous one had withdrawn from the case, but the 21-year-old continued with his smug attitude.
Your attorney withdrew, so you'll have to hire an attorney? You're a lawyer?
Nope.
You want to talk to me about me at bond with me? What do you want to tell me?
What?
Bond?
I don't really give a to be honest with you. I don't really give a to be honest with you.
That's going to cost you 30 days in the county jail for contempt. Cuff him if you got the cuffs. Hold on. It's $5,000 cash surety bond, temporary, subject to the temporary protection order. Word to judge. Can I give you a piece of advice?
What?
You can either make life easy or you can make life hard. That's 60. You want to go for 90?
Continued his rant as Judge Green kept on adding to the charges.
That's 90 more. That's 180. That's 306.
I'm working at McDonald's. Now I gotta come here and my life up. You!
Melvin, stop!
How many days you want to give me now? Are you sir counting?
Yeah, I'm at about a year right now in contempt, so.
Milton's family members tried to intervene, but there was no stopping him.
In contempt, so.
He's got mental problems. He's not on medication.
Ma'am, I don't care.
I don't give a you.
Melvin, stop!
Everybody. You.
Melvin,
The power.
Court deputies took Milton away as his family looked on with disappointment.
stop.
Just let him do whatever he wants to do.
Melvin.
You don't want to listen.
While Judge Green initially went up to 365 days in the heat of the moment, once everything calmed down, Milton was sentenced to 90 days in prison. While Milton Watts will be spending less time in prison than he bargained for, what happens when a convict walks out of a courtroom? Like in the case of Joey Watts, who's on trial at the Grant County Courthouse in Arkansas, facing charges of aggravated assault and felony possession of a firearm. Watts, who was accused of threatening a woman using a shotgun, is seen sitting beside his attorney while the jury went inside to deliberate his case. The prosecutor was chatting with some women while the court clerk seemed busy on her phone. However, what Watts did next left everyone stunned. With no court officers in sight, Watts decided to get up and casually walk out of the courtroom. Once out the door, he coolly went downstairs. Then he said something to his family members sitting in the hallway before quickening up his pace and walking out of the main door. As soon as he stepped out, Watts took off, not taking any chances. Inside the courtroom, the jury found him guilty of all charges. Watts' freedom was short-lived as he was arrested the next day. Eventually, it turned out that 3 other people had helped Watts escape, including his brother, who was sitting behind him in the courtroom. As soon as Watts exited the court, his brother signaled the other guy and the 2 got up and left. Ultimately, Watts was sentenced to 36 years in prison, 10 years for the attack and 26 years for the gun possession. While Joey Watts' trial seemed pretty chill and casual, how does it compare to the sickening trial of Taylor Shabusiness, who's facing murder in Green Bay, Wisconsin? Reports suggest that 25-year-old Taylor killed and mutilated her boyfriend, Shad Therion, in a drug-fueled intimate act. The 24-year-old was strangled with a metal chain, and his dismembered body was found in his mother's basement. Taylor left Shad's severed head in a bucket, and other body parts in storage totes, plastic bags, and cardboard boxes. Shad's mom, Tara, discovered the gruesome scene and called 911.
Very positive my son's head is in a bucket, a metal bucket in my basement.
What makes you think that?
Because I looked in the bucket.
The cops immediately arrived and found blood marks outside the house.
Is this blood? Does this look like blood to you? Or am I just tripping? Bloody footprint? You see this right here?
Once inside, they discovered the full extent of the crime.
I had Officer Plunky come downstairs and just verify we had in fact found a human head in the bucket, and then we started to notify a supervisor and then ask for additional units.
Taylor was swiftly arrested.
Hi, Taylor. How's it going? Officer Russell with the Green Bay Police Department. Just make sure you ain't got nothing on you here.
During interrogation, Taylor explained what actually happened that night. She said that both Shad and she took part in uncommon sexual acts, which quickly took a darker turn.
You two being intimate, having sex?
It was getting there.
It was getting there, okay. So will this be considered foreplay?
Yeah. And then, I don't know. And then, I just didn't stop. I don't know why. I didn't stop.
So when he put the chain on his neck, he thought that you guys were going to have kinky sex, right? You think that's what Chad was thinking, maybe?
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
I was going to do the same thing. You know, I was going in, and I did.
So when did you realize that Chad was not alive anymore?
You know, his face turned purple. He was coughing up blood, and he was pissing.
Eventually, when she did realize that Shad was dying, Taylor didn't stop and ultimately decided to kill him.
The chain goes around his neck and you started choking him. And you just realized that he was going to die or what?
I look at him, I'm like, he's already purple. I'm like, fuck him. I'm like, I don't know if he's fucking, is he good? Is he good? But then, like, when I woke up, like, you know, during the blackout moment, I'm like, like, he was coughing up blood. I'm like.
She also said she didn't want to kill Shad, but admitted to enjoying it.
Do you want Shad to be dead?
No, it was out of random. Like, I wasn't expecting that, and it kind of threw me off guard.
You enjoyed it, right? Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Did it make you happy? Was it just kind of exciting? Like opening Christmas presents?
Like, this is the thing that I have, like, I've always had, you know, like, you ever love something so much that you kill it? Like, it happens to me. That's the feeling that I have. I love something so much that I kill it. Like, I love it so much, and then I kill it. That's what happens to me.
After Shad was killed, Taylor assaulted his dead body for the next 2 to 3 hours.
I just play with him.
You said play with him. What do you mean?
Play with his.
Yeah.
Like, I put him up over the,
What do you do with this?
I put it off.
Did you ever place it in your van or any of your body parts?
No, I just.
You didn't use it as a
She then proceeded to dismember Shad's body using knives from his mom's kitchen.
What did you dismember his body with?
Knives.
With what?
Knives.
Knives? Just more than one knife? Where did you get those from?
Kitchen.
You know, cutting up his body.
I don't know, like almost right away. I was sucking and cutting at the same time. I grinded on him, I put the in it.
Finally, she disposed of the body parts in her van, but became lazy and forgot the decapitated head in the bucket. Taylor was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree assault. In court, investigators described the horrific crime scene.
Beyond the stack of mattresses, there appeared to be blood on the floor and then small chunks of human flesh.
There was a human head. There was genitalia in the bucket.
Let me stop you there. What do you mean genitalia?
What I would recognize as a penis and testicles.
Skin, soft tissues, and muscle had been removed from the bone so that it was largely stripped down to the bone itself. It has been largely flayed and defleshed. In other words, the skin of the back has been removed. Also, the muscles of the back have been removed so that we have exposed rib cage.
Despite the grisly nature of her crimes, what Taylor did next still managed to shock everyone.
Stop.
Taylor attacked her own lawyer in court and finally took 2 officers to subdue her.
You went off on your attorney, Taylor. You went crazy on your attorney.
Due to her aggressive behavior and courtroom antics, Taylor was forced to wear a spit mask and shackles for the remainder of the trial. At her sentencing, Shad's loved ones got the chance to address his killer directly.
And if you take the path to go get the help, you wouldn't be in this situation right now. None of us would be in this situation. But to take the cowardly path that you did and to make other people suffer because you were suffering is pretty shitty. So that name Taylor shit business fits you well. And I'm not a praying man, but after Judge Walsh's sentences today, I will pray that you meet the same fate as your idealistic Jeffrey Dahmer. So have a good life, business.
Taylor, I just wanted to say that I forgive you for what you done to my son. And yeah, you made a bad choice, and now you have to live with it. But you know, I'm gonna miss Shad. He was a wonderful child too. Growing up, just mild mannered and just happy. And I know you made a bad choice. And like I said, I forgive you. And I'm going to ask the judge if he can, if she can see the streets again sometime,
However, the judge had no such sympathy.
Crime offends human decency, it offends human dignity, and it offends the human community. It really does. 22 CF 363, count 1, that's the first-degree intentional homicide as a repeater. It's a Class A felony. Going to impose life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision. I believe that's appropriate in light of the findings that I've already made.
While Taylor Shabiznis's trial was filled with blood-chilling moments, how does it compare to the outrageous attempts of Bradley Yohn defending himself in court?
I wouldn't care if I was a prosecutor or not. I wouldn't sit here and call the defendant a man. I'd call him a piece of excuse my terminology, Your Honor, but I'd call him a piece of
Police said that on November 9th, 2021, Yohn forced his way into the vehicle of Tina Lohman after the 77-year-old great-grandmother was having car troubles. He then assaulted her before driving to her home, where Tina was further assaulted and robbed. She died a month later. Yohn and his accomplice were arrested and charged with kidnapping and assault. While his partner pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 40 years in prison, Yohn decided to represent himself in a trial that was filled with bizarre and outrageous moments. Even before his trial began, Yohn had already started causing chaos. In a pretrial hearing, he exploded, insulting the judge after the latter refused to argue his motion.
If you file a written motion, notify the state of those issues, and then we can schedule those for a hearing.
It seems like things don't get filed, Your Honor. The clerk just does not file them. That's one of my reasons. Things often do.
Mr. Yohn, you're remanded to the custody of the sheriff.
The clerk will start filing my stuff. And the clerk will never file my stuff. That's why I'm sitting here trying to argue. Piece of shit. Let's go.
When Yohn's trial began, prosecutors told the court what allegedly happened that night.
The defendant forced his way into Tina's car. Tina thought it was about taking money and jewelry from her. She thought the defendant was going to kill her, so she told her she had more stuff back at her house. The defendant was doing all of these things, robbing her, assaulting her.
They also claimed that Yohn fled the scene after the attack and played video poker all night, which was backed up by CCTV footage.
After the defendant finished robbing Tina of her dignity, he fled. He went across the river to Hannibal, and he played video poker.
They ended their statement by describing the victim's heartbreaking fate.
The weeks after her assault, Tina was in pain, both emotional pain and physical pain. She never had the opportunity to recover because on December 12th, 2021, Tina's heart broke.
A first responder who witnessed the aftermath of the horrific crime testified in court, describing Tina's condition after the attack.
On the floor, there was some crying, but it was also, I think, what I've seen in other people, a shock. There was like a pain for kind of remembering it.
During his opening arguments, Yohn claimed he was being tormented in jail.
Brought a light to my soul as I've been stuck here in this county jail, tormented for the last 19 months.
He then went on to make some odd comments that made no sense.
I spoke on being logical in the opening argument. Being logical is logical. I ask that you forgive my appearance. This is not normally me. I normally have hair. I did not expect you to feel sorry for me by any means.
Even prosecutors seemed confused by some of his statements.
We all know what incredible and impossible means. Impossible means not possible. Credible means it's not credible.
He then told a bizarre childhood story about his brother, which he believed was similar to the lies told about him in this case.
My little brother used to run to Mother and say, "Mom, BB hit me." BB was my sister. Mom would say, "Well, my lovely young man, where are the marks to prove such?" Come to find out, my brother only had the remote taken from him. The tales he was telling, you will see that today, here, and throughout this trial, there are major tales told.
Then prosecutors made the court aware of an incident involving Yohn's cousin.
Individual by the name of Travis Bloom attempted to enter the courtroom at breaks. At that point, he stayed outside the courtroom, but was heard outside the courtroom making very loud comments that were heard by Sheriff's Deputy Sam Smith inside the courtroom.
To which Yohn objected. He said this family was being denied in court without good reason.
Your Honor, throughout my time here, my family has been repetitively denied. I understand Travis Bloom is an idiot. I understand that, fully understand that. They didn't arrest him yesterday. If he did all them things, they probably should have arrested him, right? I mean, these are very serious matters. Limit him from the courtroom simply because of this is ridiculous. If a person does not know that they cannot come in during a time that is not a recess, then maybe they should be explained that, or maybe there should be notices posted on a wall somewhere.
But Yohn's argument backfired. The judge overruled him and sat down with a mic drop moment.
The gentleman in the back courtroom by the door with law enforcement. What's your name?
Deputy Govan. You may only enter the courtroom at recess or breaks.
And you were here yesterday, sir?
I was.
And was that sign posted on the door at all times?
I believe so.
Have a seat, Mr. Yohn. Your motion or objection is overruled.
But that didn't stop Yohn. He went on to say that witnesses being called to the court were seeking guidance from the prosecutors.
Several times throughout these witness testimonies thus far, witnesses have looked directly over at state's attorneys for guidance. Mr. Lohmeyer just did a moment ago.
However, when the judge asked him for a valid argument to support his objection, Yohn couldn't provide any.
John, have you noticed either of the assistant state's attorneys giving an answer to the witness?
I tried to look and catch it this time, but no, I have not, Your Honor.
Okay, neither has the court. And so where the witness looks while answering questions, I cannot control. But unless the assistant state's attorneys are indicating some kind of answer that they should be giving, there's no reason to basically uphold your objection.
Then came the most outrageous moment of the trial, when Tina's husband, Tim, took the stand. Yohn claimed he didn't call 911 on the night his wife was attacked.
And do you recall what time you made a 911 call?
It was a little after 6 o'clock, right after I went home.
If I said that there...
Objection, Your Honor. I know what he's going to ask next, Your Honor, and if it's going to be an objectionable question that the jury is not allowed to hear.
Just to refresh your memory, you stated you were subpoenaed for phone records, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. We just dealt with this.
Mr. Yohn, the court sustained that objection.
Your Honor.
We need to go down a new path.
Letting the witness know where we're at, Your Honor.
He was here, he knows, so next question, sir.
Despite the widow saying he did call 911, Yohn wanted to impeach him with phone records.
And you did provide those records.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered, and we've gone down this path.
The prosecution objected repeatedly because 911 calls are not recorded in phone records, leading to a heated exchange with the prosecutors.
Are you aware that there was no 911
Objection,
call?
Your Honor.
I will sustain the objection, Mr.
There was
Yohn.
no 911 call.
Objection, Your Honor.
But wait, it gets worse for Yohn. Later on, he questioned the investigating detective about those phone records and provided a police report to support his argument.
I know it as a dispatch ticket, but I believe CFS, yes.
And, Your Honor, I'd like to publish this to the jury. It states, male came and attacked his wife and broke into the house and stole the car, correct?
However, it backfired again. The report suggested that there was indeed a 911 call made that night.
Quincy, Adams County 911 call for service report, doesn't it?
Yes.
That means there was a 911 call, doesn't it?
Correct.
Now, if you think that was it, you'd be wrong. In his closing argument, Yohn made a final attempt to persuade the jury that he was innocent. However, some of his statements didn't make any sense. First, he started verbally abusing himself.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today we're here on some sick, heinous matters. Matters that if I were that person, I wouldn't care if I was a prosecutor or not. I wouldn't sit here and call the defendant a man. I'd call him a piece of excuse my terminology, Your Honor, but I'd call him a piece of Mr. Jones has put on a great presentation today. Very great. Just like Miss Keck did on Monday last week. She put on a great presentation. Very abnormal and not her normal voice. Not her normal voice at all. She come forward with a presentation that seems so unnatural just to try to persuade you people. Just to try to persuade you. You see the woman right here on the screen? That's from a video. Does it appear if she's hurt, battered, beat? Persuasion. You can persuade anybody to do anything with words. You can persuade them with actions. You can persuade them with evidence. I do not go around robbing people. My two greatest friends are elderly people. One just happens to be 76 years old. She was my next door neighbor. My best friend in the world, he's 62 years old. Just turned 62. My mama taught me better than this. She didn't teach me to go out and do these things, nor did I do them.
But the jury was unmoved. Yohn was eventually convicted of all charges.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Bradley Yohn, guilty of home invasion, criminal sexual assault. We, the jury, find the defendant, Bradley Yohn, guilty of aggravated kidnapping. We, the jury, find the defendant, Bradley Yohn, guilty of aggravated vehicular hijacking. We, the jury, find the defendant, Bradley Yohn, guilty of aggravated criminal sexual assault. We, the jury, find the defendant, Bradley Yohn, guilty of residential burglary.
At his sentencing, Yohn was given a chance to speak, where he maintained his innocence.
I did not hurt your mother, your grandmother. I did not do any of that. I wasn't part of that this night. I was not there. There's a lot more to this than y'all know. Your Honor, I'm not guilty for this at all.
Ultimately, Yohn was sentenced to a total of 130 years in prison.
Should total the 130 years being imposed.
While Bradley Yohn's outrageous defense will certainly go down in history, how does it compare to the crazy trial of Darrell Brooks, who's facing mass murder charges in Wisconsin?
Your life is not on the line. Mine is. And you think that I think this is funny?
I don't think it's funny whatsoever.
So I think, Your Honor, with all due respect, I think you should show some respect.
According to reports, on November 21st, 2021, Brooks, an ex-convict, drove a red SUV into the annual Christmas parade in Waukesha. Onlookers caught the whole incident on camera. First, Brooks narrowly missed a little girl dancing beside the road. Then he hit a marching band, leaving many injured on the road. And the SUV then broke through speed barriers and sped away as a police officer fired shots. Brooks left behind a scene of utter chaos and destruction. Eyewitnesses immediately called 911.
About 10 to 15 people down in the street. We also got multiple critical patients.
They later recounted the horrors that unfolded that day.
So many bodies in the road, and then I saw them start to pick them up, and they were little kids.
I literally saw roughly 10 people bounce off of that car, and you could hear thud, 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 thud as he drove through that.
Brooks's rampage killed 6 people and injured 62 others. He was soon arrested from outside a house in Waukesha.
What is your name? Brooks. I just used somebody's phone to call for a minute, that's all. Oh, okay. That's what I need, yeah. 1 the black male red short t-shirt.
Brooks's trial was filled with bizarre incidents. First, he fired his lawyers and represented himself as a sovereign citizen.
You wish to represent yourself in this case?
Yes, I do.
Brooks also frequently disrupted court proceedings.
I am well aware. That's another interruption. I'm well aware. Stop
respectfully, which I
talking.
have the right to.
At first, Judge Jennifer Darrow gave him a warning.
Mr. Brooks, you're advised that continued interruptions will result in you forfeiting your right to be present in this courtroom, where you'll be taken to the courtroom next door to appear by video and audio means to participate.
Being removed from the courtroom, Your Honor.
That's another interruption.
For
Mr. Brooks,
3
you're
days.
interrupting me yet again.
You just weren't speaking,
all right,
so I didn't
Mr.
interrupt.
Brooks, you are now going to be removed to the other courtroom.
Throughout the trial, Brooks's outbursts continued.
Once
So
again,
we can
Mr.
open the
Brooks
door
is
on.
being
We can
loud,
open the door on how old she told me she was when we met.
interrupting.
We can ask
He's-
that question
he is
too. Then
over the
Did you
top
ask that?
animated
Do you
right
know
now.
that?
Eventually, Brooks was convicted by the jury.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Darrell E. Brooks, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 6 of the information, dated today's date, signed by the foreperson.
At his sentencing, the mother of the 8-year-old boy killed in this tragic incident addressed her son's killer.
You're a child killer, a woman killer. I cannot wait until somebody inflicts that harm on you.
Judge Darrow said the community would be safer with Brooks locked up in jail.
Frankly, Mr. Brooks, no one is safe from you. This community can only be safe if you are behind bars for the rest of your life.
Ultimately, Brooks was served 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 762.5 years.
This court is imposing a life sentence without the possibility or eligibility for extended supervision consecutive to one another.
While Darrell Brooks' trial was filled with crazy moments, how does it compare to a convict breaking out in a song in the courtroom?
Mother, I'm sorry, 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 sorry.
Like in the case of Brian Earl Taylor, who's facing sentencing at the Washtenaw County Court in Michigan. In 2015, police reportedly caught 21-year-old Taylor struggling with a man while holding a gun to his stomach during a robbery. He was charged and convicted of unlawful imprisonment and carrying a concealed weapon. At his sentencing, Taylor apologized to the victim and Judge Jarlene O'Brien, in whose courtroom he had stood before.
Hello, Honorable Judge O'Brien. My name is Brian Taylor. I would like to start off my speech by saying sorry to the victim, Shawan Smith. My sorrow also to you, Your Honor, for presenting myself in your courtroom again. These 4 months that I have been incarcerated, I have thought of a methodical plan to ensure I never go to prison ever again. I want to go back to school to finish my major, business management, at Eastern Michigan University. I want to involve myself around people that I grew up with that have positive goals. In conclusion, Your Honor, I would like to apologize to the victim again. I am truly sorry. I am asking you to sentence me to 36 months, please, instead of 42, because I have a 7-year-old brother that looks up to me. I need to be there for him as a male figure to show him how to grow as a mature young adult. Thank you, Your Honor, for your consideration and letting me speak.
Then, to everyone's surprise, Taylor belted out a heartfelt song inspired by Adele's hit track, Hello.
Hello there, Your Honor. I want to say I'm sorry. That door I closed. And Your Honor, I'm sorry, 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 sorry. To my mother, I'm sorry, 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 sorry.
Judge O'Brien seemed impressed by Taylor's talent and wished him the best for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Well, you're obviously a talented young man, and I hope that you'll be able to use your time productively when you're in the Michigan Department of Corrections to take advantage of the programs that they have, so you will be able to reach your goals.
Eventually, Judge O'Brien gave him the minimum sentence of 2 years for the weapons charge and an additional 18 months to 15 years for unlawful imprisonment. While Brian Taylor got a lesser sentence for being regretful and apologetic, what happens when you show no remorse for your heinous crimes?
What about y'all got more blood on y'all than I got blood on my hands?
Like in the case of David Mejia, a suspect in the shooting of a Miami Gardens police officer. According to reports, in 2016, Officer David Starling was ambushed while sitting in his patrol car writing a traffic report. Police said Mejia drove past Officer Starling, reversed, and then fired 6 shots at him for no apparent reason.
Joe decided that he was going to shoot into the police car several times. He struck him once.
Police say Mejia drove by, eyeballed the officer,
then backed up and shot at David Starling.
Despite being wounded, Officer Starling managed to radio for help. After a short police pursuit, Mejia crashed his vehicle and was promptly arrested.
The feds want to find out if this is an isolated incident or a terrorist attack. One reason terrorism is being looked at is because of the officer ambush in Philadelphia a few weeks ago.
At his bond hearing, a judge read out Mejia's non-bondable offenses.
Mr. Mejia, good morning, sir. You've been charged with 5 counts of attempted first-degree murder with a deadly weapon.
Mejia took offense for being denied bond and compared it to the case of Dylan Roof, the convict in the Charleston church mass shooting.
How does a kid who shot a church get a bond, but I can't get a bond, man?
Do not talk about the facts, sir.
Mejia also claimed his life was in danger because of crooked cops.
I practiced my Second Amendment. My life was in danger by crooked cops.
Don't talk about the facts of the case, sir.
How about you don't talk? When you work for them, Ku Klux Klan member. I'm representing myself, man. I got a lawyer. I got a lawyer, too. I was in threat for my life. They were trying to kill me, man.
Ultimately, the judge found probable cause and denied the bond. This is when Mejia exploded.
I do find probable cause for all of the offenses that are charged. Most of these offenses are no bond.
That's crazy.
At least for that.
What about y'all got more blood on y'all than I got blood on my hands?
He was eventually dismissed as the judge concluded that Mejia was mentally ill.
Yeah, he's mentally ill, clearly.
The trial lasted more than a year, after which Mejia accepted a plea deal. As part of the deal, Mejia will serve 4 years in prison, followed by 10 years of probation. He must also undergo a mental health evaluation.